Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Adasha and Amani from MAPS-MCOC coming to you live from the streets.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Amani Rashid from MAPS-MCOC. Today, for honoring Black History Month and celebrating, we have Darneesha Wary from Black Coffee and Adasha Turner from MAPS-CDEI. So I welcome both Darneesha and Adasha. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we will be discussing and celebrating and supporting our local Black-owned businesses in the Puget Sound area. So I have Adasha with me. Adasha, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah. Out here it's cold, but doing the work, picking up kits for peace. So everybody tune in for that. I feel very honored. I've been trying to run into Darneesha for the last year as she's been opening up her business. And unfortunately, she's had a lot of trials, but I wanted to be able to show and connect with our Muslim communities the importance of reaching out in those intersectionalities between Black and Muslims and Muslim communities and how we can support. So I feel honored today to highlight Black Coffee and all the struggles that I've personally seen this community go through, my community go through, and really uplift the sister here that's doing tremendous work for the youth and representation for Black folks around the Puget Sound area. So thank you, and Darneesha, for being here with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for having me on this platform today. I really appreciate it. I know we've been trying to get together for a long time, but we're both out here getting the work done. So it's busy. My name is Darneesha Wary. I'm born and raised actually in Washington in the Seattle area, and really had some interesting experiences living out in the North End. So living out in an area where there's not a lot of people that look like me. And so I had some pretty not so great experiences living out in the North End, the North King County, Snohomish County area, and decided to open Black Coffee. Black Coffee has been in the works for about 20 years. We've been doing the community work for quite some time, showing up, being a part of, understanding what's going on in our community, understanding the needs of the Black community, listening, and then just showing up in any way possible. So that's where Black Coffee was birthed. You know, it's been in the works, and now we just actually have a location to continue that work. So
I see.
Yeah, so it's been in the works for quite some time, and now we just have a place to do it, and I'm super excited about that.
No, I'm super excited, especially for the aerobics and step and all the that you guys have gotten going on, bringing that South feel to. I live in the North as well, so definitely feel what you're talking about. Just really reaching out and connecting with just brown folks. It's nice to see, you know, melanation out there representing and doing positive things for the community and being role models for the youth. And that's one thing my 6-year-old is like. She knows you, she knows your daughter, she knows your son, your husband. She's like, that's my role model. And every time I go there, she's like, these are my friends. You have like, you guys just make people feel comfortable of all walks of life coming to Black Coffee. Your lines show it, you know what I mean? Your support shows it. And I'm just really blessed to have you in our community. So I know what inspired you to start Black Coffee, but where did you get the name from? Like out here in Seattle with like big brands like Starbucks and even who's the other one? Dunkin' Donuts even trying to show up, you know, on the West Coast. Like, what inspired you to name it, you know, Black Coffee?
Well, we're thinking about who we are as our community, as our Black community, and who we are, and what does it mean to be unapologetic, and what does it mean to show up, and what does it mean to be all things Black? And we were like, we love Black coffee. We're like, we don't want no cream, we don't want no additives, we just want straight up Blackness.
Black coffee, no sugar, no cream. I remember.
Yeah, I was like, so let's just call it Black Coffee, because we really want to be that space where we're unapologetic about our Blackness, and we're building generational wealth. We're teaching our kids how to be entrepreneurs. And I'm like, it's all things Black. So let's just call it Black Coffee. And my husband's favorite drink actually is legit just Black coffee.
Yeah, it's mine. So, actually, it's the same, which is funny. They call it the dark roast or French roast. And it's like, no, it's the dark roast.
It's the dark roast. Yeah.
And I really like your menu because you've taken and you put a twist onto everything to make it very Afrocentric when it comes to that, because a lot of coffee, you know, does come from BIPOC and colored people, Black folks. So I really like the names of that. What's one of your favorite coffees?
My favorite, so I am on a keto, low carb. I've been on low carbs for about a year. And it's something that's worked for me. Just I've been working on my whole body, just making sure I'm eating right and feeling good and taking out anything that would put harm to my body. And for me, sugar is something that my body doesn't do well with. And so I didn't go on this journey to like necessarily just lose weight. It was really like body, mind, and spirit. I wanted to be whole and healthy. And so I started cutting out sugar out of my diet and tons of carbs because I love food. So I love like French fries and cookie. Like I really do.
I've had your mother's sweet potato pie, so I can imagine
so
it's so hard. It would be difficult for me.
Yes, it is so hard. And so even with that though, like disciplining myself to wherever I go, make sure that I have something there that's healthy. And so my favorite drink is actually, we call it an Africano, which is an Americano, an Africano with cream and two Splenda. That's my favorite drink. I order it every single day. And I also tell others, I'm like, these are like low carb, healthy options to have if you like coffee that doesn't have a bunch of like sugar. And because my other favorite drink used to be like a caramel macchiato with extra caramel, extra foam, extra vanilla, like extra, extra everything, stir it up. But I am on a quest to be healthy in all ways. So
that's great. I'm on the same mission, but the keto didn't work for me. It was too much limits. I love food too. So
yes, you gotta do whatever works for you. That's what I tell people. Just do whatever works for you. And this is what worked for me. But find whatever works for you and just roll with that. Yeah.
So how do you feel getting all this support, you know, as you're inspiring like the Black community? And not even though it's Black coffee and we're saying Black community, I've been to a lot of your functions and it was just like, there's so much diversity there, you know what I mean? And just to picture that. So with that support, like, are you feeling like you're really touching or what more can you do to touch, you know, the community?
I love the support. I love the diversity. And what my mission is to do is to challenge the system that if you serve the Black community, if you serve those furthest away from justice, if you serve intentionally, make sure that the Black community is a part of everything you do, then you're going to be successful. And you just have to make the decision to do it. And so I love it. When people show up, I love the fact that, you know, our lines are long and people are like, what's your secret? Like, how do you do it? I'm like, serve people first, serve the Black community first. That's the secret. And it's not even a secret. Everybody knows that. They just decide not to do it. And I'm like, it's not that hard. You just have to make the decision to do it. And people, you know, they're like, well, you're marketing, you're this, you're that. It's so on brand. I'm like, we are just serving people. Whatever the Black community needs, that's what we're doing. And so if you want to call that on brand, sure. But we're literally, our mission is to serve the Black community, and that's it.
Yeah.
So you're serving the community, like you're saying with that. I just see, like I said, a lot of representation out there, a lot of the youth out there. I was been part of two of your over 200 car, you know, campaigns and parades, you know, for awareness throughout the city. Definitely appreciating that. What has been one, I know, but for our viewers who don't, what has been one of the most challenging aspects of opening Black coffee?
Being Black, being a Black business in a space, in a place where people, the community really believe, I think white people really believe that we were so progressive and that racism didn't live here and racism wasn't here. And, you know, like this is a fun and a nice and a welcoming community. And I'm like, well, not for everybody, not for everybody. So they like to say, you know, it's a melting pot. And I'm like, it's more of a Cobb salad. And I love Cobb salad. It's completely fine that it's a Cobb salad. It doesn't need to be a melting pot. It needs to be a place where everybody can be a part of the Cobb salad. You just have to figure out where everybody fits in. And so we, you know, it's just been a challenge to continue to tell the story of, and I will continue to tell the story of how hard it is to be a Black business, and that it shouldn't be celebrated that we're the first Black coffee shop in this area. That's not a way, anything that's in 2020, 2021, it's the first Black, should be deeply examined as to why, because it's intentional. And so we could have given up we could have walked away and be like, forget Shoreline, like we're out of here. Like, I'm not doing this. They try to blow the building up, like literally try to set it on fire. We've had hate messages and things that really made us afraid for our safety. We could have left, but I'm not leaving. Like, we're not leaving. We're staying right here. And we're going to be, every time someone attacks us, we're going to be louder. We're going to be louder and louder and louder. And that's exactly what we've done. And that's exactly what we're going to continue to do. And also, we're going to keep telling the story. We're not going to be quiet about it. Every little thing, if someone writes in our building a hate symbol, I'm going to post that and say, look, Shoreline, this is in your neighborhood. So while you're busy running around here trying to figure out what I can do, it's right here. Like right here. So that's going to be our mission, is to continue to tell the story, and then also allow pathways for other Black and brown businesses to open up and show up. Because if we blaze the trail, we want to bring others with us. And so they don't have to have the same struggles we did. We want to make it easier for the next one to show up. So I'm like, we're trying to take over.
Right. And then for your youth, I just really want you to touch on some of the services that you provide at Black Coffee, besides delivering, the food, the coffee, and the pastries, and of course the good times and pleasant smiles. Some of the other services that you provide the community.
Our youth are involved in every aspect of Black Coffee. Our youth are involved with all of our planning, all of our meetings, all of our operations meetings, from budgeting. They're right there. They know the business inside and out, as they should, because in the future, I need them to take this and elevate it more than I could have. I tell them I'm working myself out of a job. Like, it's going to be time for me to be done and handed off to them. And I need them to be ready to take it. Right. And so I need to develop them to be the leaders that we need them to be. And our youth leaders, they walk up in Black Coffee like they own the space. Okay. Like, they walk in, they know what's going on. They walk in that sense of pride and that sense of ownership. Like, I love it. I love it because they don't have that opportunity at school when they're the only one in their classrooms, or when they go out to other spaces and they don't see themselves on the walls or in the marketing or in the very fabric of Black Coffee. They see themselves, they hear them, they love the music. From the music we play is music that they like. So I love the fact that our youth are heavily involved with even decision making. As far as me saying, hey, should we do this? And we're like, that's whack. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, okay, fine. We're not doing that then.
Right. I have personally taken youth on, like, we're going to go get some coffee. And they're like, what? And so I've taken them through your line, you know what I mean? And really explain what's happening there. And then for them to be able to interact, at the counter. And then your youth, just really open them up. And they're like, this is possible. This is so possible. So I just really want to thank you for exhibiting what can be if we just really support our youth, you know what I mean? Yes. And not try to be the steering and say we advocate for them, but want to control every aspect of that, advocacy, and every aspect of the donations or the funds that are being received, and where the representation is in the decision making itself. So I definitely applaud you for that. What's your background in leadership?
Yeah, so I spent several years.
Where does it come from? Yes.
It comes from, I spent several years, about 20 years in the nonprofit sector. And so I worked for local large nonprofit in the Seattle area, and kind of worked myself up the ranks, quote unquote, right? And so I did all the things. Like, I went to college, I got my degree, and I was like, okay, this is it, like, woo. And then I could never reach where I wanted to reach within those organizations. Very rooted in whiteness, and very much rooted in using the Black community as a way to raise money, as a way to tell our sob story. But by the time we need the help, it was never there. Like, they never intentionally showed up. And so a lot of the money was used like at operations or overhead. And so I just started started creating programs and creating pathways to make sure Black people win everywhere I went in my job. And I got written up. I got in a lot of trouble for even saying the words Black Lives Matter at work. And I made t-shirts for our Black employees. I got written up. There were times where the kids needed a space and a place, and where I worked, we had that space and a place. And I was like, well, let's just open up for our Black boys to come in and play basketball or just be a part. And they were like, no. But I'm like, but I thought we were here, right? We're fundraising off the backs of our Black people. Most of our Black people in these positions are the mind power behind the programs, because we know how to build programming for our community. But then you want to take it and control it. And you want to take it and dictate how we support, how we're able to give back to our community. So I was like, what I started doing is putting myself on all of the committees. And so I was on everything, on budgeting, finance. They taught me everything. I was on marketing. I learned how to run an organization, and they start sending me out, opening other locations. And so I started learning, and I just became a student and became very disciplined to leadership. And then I was underneath terrible leadership, where I felt horrible. I actually ended up in the hospital due to the stress it caused me. And I was underneath leadership with other Black women who were experiencing the same. There's a couple of us that had diagnosed with like PTSD, depression, just from experiencing racism in the workplace. And so those things I was committed to not doing. And I started writing them down, because I was like, I'm disciplining myself to be a leader. I will never do these things to anyone, but I will do these things. And so I took about 10 years in that organization, and became, as an executive, and worked in the big office and did all these things. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. Reason in a season. It was time for me to leave. And so I left and became an executive director over another organization. So I was like, okay, got that experience, and that did not work out. I was executive director over an all-white organization. And now that I look back, I'm thankful for that time, because again, there was a reason for me being there. I became disciplined again on budgeting, and what a time, right? We're in COVID. So I was a part of planning for budgeting and staffing and numbers. And I was like in school, like fast track school, and how to sustain during COVID. And I was like, all right, time for me to leave. And so I took all those knowledge that was given to me and poured it into Black coffee.
That's amazing.
And what a time to do that during COVID. I think one thing we've been able to really see demonstrated is that it doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter that a pandemic's out there. If you're connected to your community and you understand the needs of your community, you know where to get those assets and deliver to where it's going to be impactful regardless. And what they're seeing is that Black and Brown people are showing up because they have those connections. And so I'm just really grateful for this moment in time, honestly, because I think that without it, we wouldn't have been able to highlight, we wouldn't have been able to rise. There's so many Black businesses on the rise right now because of that, taking that knowledge and building for self and building for community. And it's such a beautiful thing. What are some of the impacts? I know you guys opened during COVID. So I was going to say, what has been some of the impacts of COVID on your business? But I mean, just being there last week, it's just a beautiful thing. It definitely is. One thing you talked about is being a Black owner, but one thing you haven't touched on is just being a Black woman. How do you think that has affected your path or impacted your path?
Being a Black woman in a corporate space, being a Black woman and working it's been awful, honestly. It was really hard. I have been criticized about my mannerisms, my facial expressions, the way I wear my hair. I mean, flat out, I was told, like, you need to fix your face, your facial expressions, my mannerisms, the way I talk, the way I walk. And so what I began to do is what I thought I had to do, which was become quiet and silent and more quiet. Every time they would say something, I would just internalize that and just stop doing that. And so I would say every time I would step into a space, fix your face. Every time I would tell myself to make sure you watch your tone so you don't come off too harsh. I would tell myself, make sure your hair is right. Make sure you don't come off too aggressive. And I lived like that for about 6 months, and I was miserable. But what happened was I got a promotion immediately. And so I was being affirmed, and I was being like, this is great. This is wonderful by white people. But I was miserable inside, miserable. And I am determined to show through Black coffee the genius of the Black woman, the genius, the elegance, everything that we are. I'm a mom, so you may come into Black coffee and I might be yelling at my kid, like, go sit down. Can't stop talking to me. And I have to tell people, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, that's my kid. And they're like, it's fine. Because I'm like, I'm a mom, right? Like, I might be in there wiping down the table, cleaning up. I'm a wife. My husband, we work together. And so he'll come in one time and I was like, hey, I was like, that's my baby, that's my husband. Because I'm excited he was there and I'm a wife. But I know how to get into the boardroom and get things done. I know how to do budgeting. I know how to do all those things unapologetically me, with my mannerisms, with my facial expressions, and with my hair and whatever, and all my Blackness can show up. And now show up as a business owner in places and spaces and sit there and be me.
and still slay all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been so freeing for me. And I didn't realize how much I was sacrificing pieces of me just to climb and just to survive, really. And I will never do that again. And I will show that to every single little Black girl that looks up to me and to everyone at Black Coffee, that you can just show in and be you.
Wow. It's a sense of relief.
Yes. Like working for Black Coffee is easy for me. All of my Black baristas, they work hard. They work hard. I was like, y'all need a break. Y'all look tired. But they said this is the easiest job for me because I can just show up and be myself. I don't have to worry about anyone. I can just show up and do my job, and that's it. That's and awesome. Not have to worry about all the other, how I act, how I walk, how I talk. And the number one thing I tell our baristas is that we don't code switch here. You do not have to show up and put on your quote unquote customer service voice. We define what customer service looks like, and we define what professionalism is. And we don't subscribe to whatever the world calls professionalism. We determine that here. And we serve our baristas and we serve our community first. And honestly, if people don't like that, then I just kindly tell them that you don't have to come here. There's many other coffee shops that you can go to if it's too loud and too this and too that. So yeah, I think I went a little tangent.
Right. That's awesome. Keep going.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask you, like, for especially a lot of like our listeners who we tend to say, like, supporting our communities, why is it important to support Black businesses, and just speak to like the disproportionate funding, and you have a little bit, but can you touch on that, on why it's important to seek out and support Black owned businesses?
The disparities in the trials and tribulations of being a Black person trying to open a business. It's hard. We don't have the capital. We don't have the funding. We don't have the generational wealth behind us. We don't have the connections in banking. We don't have all of those things to start with. And so it is important for our community to make sure that Black businesses are successful, that they have access to those things, and they exist, because now we're getting access to things where I'm like, wait a minute. Like, white businesses get this? Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, oh, that's why they're able to stay. That's why they're able to thrive. That's why they're able to do that, because they have access to these things. And so we want to make sure that our Black businesses are viable. They have all the support they need, because we need that economic justice. We need to bridge that gap, and we need to pour into our Black businesses and our Black communities. That's the only way we're going to be able to move forward. And so we see that just through Black coffee, just through a small a small owned Black coffee shop. And I'm like, if everyone tapped into that, like we would be able to make really big change, because we need to be in positions of power. And so we're getting ready to start endorsing Black people for our city council seats. We're getting ready to publicly endorse them and hold events for them and fundraising for them, because that we got to show up in those spaces and put people in those places. And so it's important. When you're supporting a Black business, you're not just supporting that business, like, right? You're supporting families, you're supporting staff, you're supporting contractors and vendors and others. So it's very, very, very important to support Black businesses all the time, not just in February.
Thank you for that. And then I was going to ask, how can we support you? I see things like, we need a community center, and I'm like, on it. You're working,
Yes.
you know. I read your wish list because, like I said, it's a communal need. So you're definitely my sister. But how can we support Black coffee in their mission?
I would say just start spreading the awareness of Black coffee, of not just being a coffee shop, but Black coffee as being a catalyst for change. Black coffee who is showing that if you have equitable systems in place, if you serve the Black community, then you will serve everybody, because we're furthest away from every sort of justice. And so if you go for us first, then you're going to be successful. And so I want to open a community center. We've outgrown our space already. There is stuff in every space and room, and there's stuff everywhere, because our outreach director, whose name is Don Hamid, who is phenomenal and who is amazing at doing outreach to those who are unhoused, those who are in addiction and recovery. It's different for Black people. There's a lot of barriers in place for us to access those things. I used to work with housing, and trying to navigate through that system was awful for our Black community. They don't get the people there that will help them fast track in to get applications, to get Section 8, to get whatever they need. There's always barriers and applications and this and that and the other. And so we said, we're going to be a low barrier place. So if you need shoes, we're going to make sure you get shoes. You don't have to tell me a sob story about it. I don't need to see your income about it. I don't need to see paperwork. If you need a sleeping bag, if you need whatever you need, just let Dawn know, and Dawn gets it, and she finds it and she gives it to people. And it's beautiful, and I love it. And some people are like, how do you know they're taking advantage of you? I go, we know that people are going to take advantage of us, but we don't care. We know that there will be some people that will take advantage of every system, of everything, but we're not going to plan for that. We're planning to serve. And so we just need a bigger space, because like my dream is just to be able to open a gym or open a community center or open a room if we need it. Whatever our community needs, I just want to open the doors and say, come in. We can't do that in our current space because it's too small. But right. Yeah, that's what we want. I need a space. I need a bigger space.
So I heard that there's maybe talks about another location. Can we plug that now? Can we start getting the lines going at that space?
We can't say too much about the space yet, but yes, there will be more Black coffees opening up in 2021, and we're very excited. Shoreline will be our first location. We're super excited about that, because we want to bring the Black coffee brand and all that it is to every community, and serve that community, whatever it is. So we're being very intentional about where our next space goes. We want to know who are all the systems and who are the people in positions of power, because we can't go somewhere if they are going to make sure we don't survive, right? And so we want to know who is on that city council, who is that mayor, who's in those school systems, who is around, who are going to be our allies, who are going to be the people who are going to, fight at every single corner. We want to know who those people are. And so we will be opening up soon, but it's taking some time just because we're being intentional. And we want to also make sure that the Black people in that community are in line first for everything. Yes. To be our vendors, to be our jobs, to be our vendors. If you're a small Black business and you're a baker, or you're a small Black business and you do, custom goods, we want to make sure that you are ready to grow and scale with us. And so we go back to our bank, and say, hey, bank, you need to provide capital to make sure that these other small businesses can grow. Because when we grow, they're going to grow with us. And so to be able to have those conversations has been the best part of all of this. But that was a long way to say, yes, we are opening.
No, but I actually wanted to touch on that, because if you think about any other mom and pop shop that's trying to open up anywhere else, you know what I mean, and not being a Black owned business, would they have to go through this whole list of securities just to make sure that their business is going to be viable, just to make sure that their business can be? And one thing I can say is that Darneesha has to take security like at a 200%, because she is employing the youth and she is very involved in the community. And you have so much hate just out there that don't want to see this thrive by any means necessary. And so it's those extra expenses. Not only is it difficult to start the business, it's the extra expenses to make sure that the security component is covered just to have a coffee shop. And I really want people to resonate with people. Like it's that much harder, you know, and why you don't see a lot more Black businesses out there for the reasons that, you know, you so elegantly and, you know, put. We just don't. It's not easy. And so, like I said, you are my shero, 110% down every time. Like you representing like your family. You know what I mean? You're definitely helping with the generational wealth, you know, gaps and the generational legacy gaps, because we don't have those here. And so to bring that to Washington, to bring it to Shoreline, you know what I mean, and to bring it north, you know, where it's so needed, where people like you said at the beginning, they don't think that this is an issue. Like, you know, that race is not an issue. Anybody can open up a business anywhere, and you're a testimony to like you can, but you have to have some grit. You know what I mean?
Yes, you do.
And your employees have to have grit. You know, it's not.
Yes, they do.
For you to be able to train the youth into how to show up and represent, you know, self, and really persevere in the situation and come out still shining is a gift. It's definitely a gift. And we want to know, like, how can we, like, as a community, support you, you know, in your efforts. Dawn is an amazing person.
Yes.
And we've reached out to her. Anytime she needs anything, please let us know. But yeah, I was going to say, what does the future hold? And it's like, I know you have like a playbook, you know, you guys are always coming up with so many different things that are pertinent and needed in the community. So I know that down the line, we're going to have that space, you know what I mean, in the next coffee shop. But outside of that, is this it for, you know, Black coffee? Are you staying in this realm, or are you thinking kind of more?
I'm thinking more. Always. I'm like, what are the other lines of services that we can provide? What are the other things that we can do to make sure that the Black community is in front of everything? So where can we go? What can we do? So I'm always thinking, my brain is like always on the go. But I'm always thinking of ways that we can serve. And when I have people that come to us and we're trying to, you know, or I have nonprofits come to us so that we can't find people. We have all this, you know, these donations, or we have all these things, and we can't find people, or we can't. And I'm just like, what? Like, how is that possible? Then you are not looking, and you don't want to. I want to continue to challenge every system of oppression and show that if you do the right thing, then you can actually make change. And so I love when people say, oh, we can't find Black people to hire. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because we didn't. Or I love when people say, well, we can't, you know, or Black youth, or, you know, like the school to prison pipeline we've talked about. And we bring that to the forefront and say, these are the same kids that are running the coffee shop that you like. Those same kids that you keep putting out of class that quote unquote can't pay attention in math or don't have the skills to be in, you know, honors English, are the same kids that you're walking into their coffee shop and you're reading their marketing, and they're being paid for it. They're being monetized for their work. And so what are you actually preparing them for? And we've had these conversations with teachers who constantly try to over-discipline our kids. But I love those kids. I bring them, I'm like, come on into Black coffee, because if you just let them be, and if you unleash their genius, they will be amazing. So I want to continue to find ways and places to do that. My son's an athlete. He plays at Western Washington. He loves basketball. That's what so right now he's working with some other basketball players because they can't play right now to come up with a sports line, to come up with a speed, agility, and quickness training that they can do at Black Coffee. And you want to know what else those kids are doing? They're building an app. They decided they're building an app. And I didn't even know we could do that. But they were like, we need an app to track all this, like these sports and all. I was like, oh, okay. And I walk in there and the conference room is like all these codes. And I was like, oh, so yeah, they're building an app because that's what they feel like they need it to do for like training. And how does it relate to coffee? I don't know. We'll figure that out because we're going to continue to serve.
You can drink it to help you to stay awake while you guys are doing these plannings. And that was one thing I noticed, like you really take your kids and you go through that emotional, social emotional support with them as they're going through these traumas. And not a lot of businesses do that. They will send people to training, but they don't really internalize, you know, what that training means and how to reciprocate that to where it's just not a checkbox. Seeing you do that with the youth at such an early age, it's definitely preparing them, you know, for the world that's out there. I was gonna say, what goes into a Darneesha training?
What goes into my and first of all, I'm an anti-racist educator, or a trainer. So I train and I do this work. I'm like, this is my day job. So I go around and I work with organizations on how to be anti-racist and what it feels like and what it looks like and what systems are preventing you from doing that. I would say when I work with our staff, first of all, I am more concerned about the well-being of my staff as a person. As a Black person in America at this time, I'm more concerned with how are you? And so we talk about things like, how are you? And they're like, fine. And I'm like, fine's not a feeling. Like, what is the feeling? Because if you tell me like, I'm mad, okay, I can do something with that. Great, you're mad today. I'm like, so-and-so's mad. And it's okay to be mad, right? Like, you had a bad day today. That's fine. If you're frazzled, if you're tired. And so we talk through those feelings at work because we work really hard to like serve the person. And then they're just, it's amazing how much harder they work. Like and you hear that all the time. I've been to so many trainings and conferences and, you know, throughout my career. And I'm like, God, if you focus on belonging. So we want our team to feel like they belong to Black Coffee through and through. You're a part of our Black Coffee family. If you're having a hard day, if you need a break, then take an extra break. I'm like, go in the back room and collect yourself because we all have to do it, right? Sometimes I have to sit in my car like, okay, Lord, like, whew. I'm about to walk into this place. I'm about to walk into this school. I'm already irritated. We normalize that because you're a human being and we want to take care of you first. So our trainings really are a lot of social emotional. It's a lot of how to be anti-racist, how to show up for the Black community. What does that look like? A lot of our staff are Black, but they also grew up in the North End. And so they have not been around a lot of Blackness before. They've never worked in a Black-owned business. They've not worked for a Black woman. They have not worked for a Black man. And so we had to have those conversations even with those who look like us. What does anti-Blackness look like? Because anti-Blackness shows up within the Black community as well. But I also tell them that like, that's our business. And we talk about that amongst ourselves. And so, but we have those conversations. A lot of people don't have those in the workplace, but we'll take out the chairs and sit in a circle and have those conversations because we have to address those things. And because I can't tell them to show up for work and bring 100% of yourself to work if I'm not taking care of 100% of you. So it is my mission to make sure we take care of every single one of our staff people. During all of this, the building, you know, being almost blown up, the things that our baristas have had to hear through the drive-through, people have calling them derogatory names through the drive-through. People wait in line for an hour to pull up to say something like, call them the N-word and then pull off. And I'm like, you don't got nothing else to do with your day and life? But it would be irresponsible for me and my husband to be Black-owned business if we don't take care of our Black baristas. Yeah. And so we did a mental health day. We were like, they got a paid day off. Now, this is during COVID when we're looking at our budget too, right? But we have to serve them first. It would be foolish for me to be like, oh, well, show up tomorrow and make the next cup of coffee. Who cares about, you just got called, one of our staff got called colored in the drive-through, and she was devastated by that. And so how irresponsible of it would be for me to be like, who cares, make the next cup of coffee, doesn't matter, we got money to make. We don't operate like that. We take care of them first. And if that means we have to close early, we close early. We closed all day last Wednesday for an all-day staff training. And people are like, why would you do that in COVID? And that's your bottom line. And I'm like, I got to take care of my team. That's my number one priority.
The support is amazing. I mean, the unity and the support is, it shows how strong you are. And as a Black woman and having your own Black business, it's amazing.
Thank you.
And thank you for enlightening us on this. It's like a wake-up call.
Thank you. And I also tell myself, like, you don't have to be strong. I don't want to be. I'm a strong woman because of the things that I've had to go through. But I want those kids to be strong, not because they've had to deal with the same thing I did. And you don't have to be strong. Sometimes I come in and I'm a complete hot mess, right? In front of my staff, in front of our kids, and their leader has feelings, right? Like, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm mad. And sometimes I say, I don't want to be strong today. Like, I just don't. Like, I want to be sad today. And that's just what it is. Because I want to normalize the Black woman that doesn't have to always show up and be the leader in every space. Because sometimes sometimes we shouldn't have to.
Definitely.
What advice do you have for parents out there, raising kids today that don't have a Black coffee and don't have a Darneesha, in their area? What advice can you give the parents to really understand the struggles that are out here for their youth, for their children?
Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth, and don't hide things from them. And even from our youngest child, I mean, talk to them. Be honest about what they're going to face. Teach our kids. And, we teach our kids. They grew up in Shoreline. They grew up in schools where we knew that they were not going to have any representation. And we stayed out here because we could afford to at the time. We couldn't afford to move any closer to Seattle. And that's just the truth. I came out here, my mom brought us out here, and it wasn't my choice. It was just, this is where we ended up. And so as I, grew through school, and I appreciated that my mom was always honest with us, and not like, you're Black, it's going to be so hard for you. She was like, you're Black, you're going to have obstacles, but also you can overcome them, and we're going to talk about them. And she showed up at school, and she showed us how to advocate for ourselves. And she didn't let me come home and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. She's like, what is the solution? Like, what can we do? How do we show up? Who do we engage? So I saw that growing up. And so I've been able to replicate that with my own kids, of just having the conversation. And I teach my kids how to name their feelings. That's the one thing that irritates me. It's like, how are you? Fine. And I'm like, oh, that's not a feeling, because I want to help you navigate those feelings and be able to show up in the world as you and be unapologetic about it. So I would encourage every single parent to have honest conversations with their kids about what's going on in the world, and to not shelter them from everything that's happening in the world. Be appropriate at their age, but answer the questions. In our house, we answer all questions. In our house, we answer every question. We answer all questions that our kids ask. There's nothing where I'm like, oh, you're too young to know about that. We're very honest, age appropriate, but we're also very honest with them, because I don't want the world to tell them, because that's what's going to happen if I don't. Is that the world's going to begin to shape my daughter's identity as a Black woman. The world will begin to shape my son's identity as a Black man. And that cannot happen.
I was like, and not with your daughter. Congratulations, by the way, I heard.
Thank
you.
you.
Give her a shout out and her accomplishments.
Yeah, I'm so proud of my daughter, Michaela, who is a senior this year, who's grew up in an all-white school, who was told that she was less than, not as smart as, even up into recently from her teachers who don't see her as the brilliant Black woman that she is, who undervalue her, but she continues to show up. And I feed off of her energy. And that's why I'm saying you gotta tap into your youth, because she's unapologetic sometimes, or I'm like, ooh, I don't know if we should say that, or should we say that? And she's like, yes, we're gonna say that. And I'm like, you right, right? But adults, we think too much. We think too much sometimes, or we overcomplicate things. When she can just walk into a room and say, that's a microaggression and you will not talk to me that way. And you will not undervalue my work, or I deserved an A on this project. And the teachers were like, well, it's based on my grading. She's like, I want to see the criteria. Show me the criteria that you graded my paper down on, and show me where I can praise and why. And she will challenge those systems. And she wants to know who is the decision maker. Because and we've also taught her that your teacher got a boss who has a boss who has a boss. So figure out who is the decision maker. And so we love the fact that our youngest kids who are like in elementary school know how to send emails and CC Miss Darneesha, or CC the community workers, or CC, they know what that means to come in with the heat and the fire if they need to. And I love it. I love it.
Adasha, we can't hear you. Okay.
Yes, someone came around the corner. No, I was going to say, and for all the corporations who cannot have a Miss Darneesha Weary on their staff, what is the advice that you give them for their employees?
I would tell all the corporations to go and the Black women that you have, the Black people that you have in your organizations who are actually doing the work. They have the intellectual, and we have the intellectual property that we give away every day, all day, but don't get acknowledged for it. Begin to elevate them and begin to remove the barriers so they can be in positions of power. And even if that feels like you have to take a chance, you take a chance on white people all the time. Because I have been in places where I'm like, how did she become the supervisor? Like, how are you in charge? Like, I don't understand how you're in charge. Put Black people in positions of power, give them the opportunity, and just do it. Just do it. And you will see that amazing things will happen for your business and for you, and develop those leaders. In addition to that, don't just put them in positions without making sure that there is the development that's going to take place to make sure they are successful. Develop leaders, develop your Black talent to be the leaders that you need them to be. Because if you just pop them in and be like, peace out, no job I've ever had, no one ever trained me. I never had a job where someone sat down and trained me and mentored me and developed me. I had to go seek it out and find it myself. But I would say be intentional about developing and training and making sure that you're creating, you're giving them all the tools and all the gems. I'm transparent about all of our areas of work. Our baristas have access to our budgeting. If our baristas want to know, our barista team knows how much money, how much money we're bringing every single day. They know how much our staffing costs and how much our cups cost. They know every part of our business because it all matters. It all matters. And so I would encourage them to develop, to trust Black people, to develop them, and then give them credit for their work. Give them credit for their intellectual property, because mine's been all over the place stolen.
Right. And compensate. And
pay them.
Yes.
Pay them. And every time we give a salary, every time we add onto someone's plate, we compensate them for it. And then I teach our kids, if someone offers you a job, send the pushback, ask for more, negotiate. What does that feel like? I never negotiated my salary ever, because I was never taught to. No one ever told me to negotiate. They're like, we're offering you this. I was like, woo, yay, sign the offer letter. Now I tell our kids, I'm gonna offer you low because I expect you to counter. And people are just like, and I'm like, if you don't counter, I'll pay you lower. I mean, that's fine, but I'm expecting you to counter offer this. And if you don't know what that means, we're gonna help you. So I'm gonna help you counter offer my own offer because that's a skill set I need you to learn and know for the rest of your life. I need you to have this past Black coffee wherever you go, to know your worth and know what you bring to the table and know your value and demand to be paid your value, or know what the pathway is to get there. If I can't pay you that now, then you need to ask, well, what's the pathway for me to get there? And if they don't have a pathway for you to get there, but you need to be like, then I'm never going to get there.
Right.
So
dropping gems always. And thank you for your time.
thank you.
I get to sit there and I can't wait for the book. That's all I'm saying. I cannot wait for the training manual, whatever you have.
Yes,
definitely
it's
there.
coming. Yeah.
Definitely have a lot of resources out there with Modest Family Solutions and 4-H Youth Development Program, and making a BIPOC program for that. And so I've been looking at you. So looking for the collab on that, and building those resources together, because that's the other thing. As Black business owners, we have to have each other's back until we establish that foundation to where people can recognize and see us, for what we actually bring to the table. So, Miss Amani, do you have any other?
I have some questions from Facebook. So, first,
forgot all about them people.
I got the comments. I'm monitoring what's going on in Facebook. So Malcolm Banks was like, he's saying great conversational, and keep going. He's like supporting you and don't stop. Dua Rahman Williams, do you sell coffee beans, Darneesha?
We do not, but we will be. We sell coffee beans right now from Boon Boona, who's our supplier, who's in Renton, Washington, another Black-owned business. Phenomenal, Ephraim. We love Boon Boona. The coffee is amazing, but that's the beans that we sell. I would say go support him. We sell his beans in our shop, but we're also roasting our own, and we'll be dropping that in March.
All right. Leave it on our comments page if you can, under the chat, the details. And
I'm also talking to Malcolm Banks. Malcolm Banks is the owner of a company called Sweatbox, which is a workout, which is a high intensity, fun, like it is the body, mind, and spirit workout. And we're going to be bringing Malcolm in. He's coming in actually on Monday, 15th, President's Day, to do some pop-up workouts. And then they're going to be part of Black Coffee, Sweatbox Seattle. Again, body, mind, and spirit. We're trying to make sure everyone is healthy all the way around. So y'all come on out on the 15th, and that's going to be great. So that's who Malcolm is. Let me give him a
definitely. Sounds awesome. I have one thing. Can you leave us a quote, something inspirational for our listeners? To encourage, inspirational. End it with a great quote for us.
Oh, now I have to think.
Or great advice.
Yeah, I would say my advice for anyone who's listening that is Black, who wants to be entrepreneur, who doesn't know how to start, I would say just start doing something and figure out what that thing is, that one thing is that you're most passionate about, and run with that. Run with that. You don't have to know all of the things. And the funny part, and that's my best advice, because I don't know how to make an espresso shot to save my life. I would not know how to make I don't know how to make coffee. Okay.
Yeah,
that's not what I do.
Wow.
Yeah. I do not know how to make coffee. I love drinking coffee, but I know how to bring community together, and I know operations. So I don't have to know how to make coffee if I can bring people together that know how to. So we call them our personal board of directors, right? Our personal board of directors, the people who know how to do the things that we don't. And so we put them around us and we create that space, and we make sure that they are Black. And if they are not Black, because there's some of our suppliers who are not Black because we just couldn't find a Black person to do this specific thing. And so that's a problem. I'm like, okay, write that down, because we got to go find someone who's interested in, that's what I'm saying, like whatever it is, like our cup supplier, we want our cup supplier to be Black. So if your child is at home and they love designing, they're always drawing on cups or drawing on walls, like start tapping into that now. Like, oh, okay, that might be something, because we probably may need that. So understand what I always call it, stay in your lane, because I'm like, I'm the president of the Stay in Your Lane Club. I'm like, know what your thing is and master that thing and bring that thing to the table, because you never know when I'm looking for someone who makes plastic forks, right? Like, we need someone that makes plastic forks that's Black. And you just never know where that brilliance is if you never unleash it. So whatever that thing is inside of you, we all have it. We all have a passion. We all have a purpose. Whatever that purpose is inside of you, start figuring out how to develop that. There's so much information out there right now. I'm on podcasts. I listen to podcasts every day, all day, about business, about wealth, about yourself, about being a Black woman. I listen to podcasts. I watch, I discipline myself to listen and learn and always be thirsty for learning. Always be hungry to learn and always be ready to learn something new every single day. I guess that would be my advice, is be ready to learn something and be curious about things every single day. I'm a curious person and I raise curious kids, and it irritates me sometimes. They ask a lot of questions. And all the kids that we work with, we foster that curiosity. So they talk a lot and ask a lot of questions. But I love that. I love that. Ask a lot of questions.
Don't let people define life for you. Yes.
Yes.
That's
Awesome.
That's great. Thank you, Darneesha. We appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, we've been trying to reach, alhamdulillah, it worked out great. And Adasha, once again, thank you so much. Without
Welcome.
you,
I wanted to personally ask Darneesha's mother for some pie. So that's like I took you up on just talk to this Darneesha. So,
yes, we're going to be bringing that back. So we'll have it back soon. Our menu is going to be revamped shortly with new pastries, new items, and new coffee drinks. So we're super excited about that.
Yes.
Awesome.
And the sweat box. I've been pushing that.
Sweat box. Yes, that's going to be great. That's just going to be a great time for us to get together, work out, have fun. Malcolm is hilarious. Like, he has so much great energy. Like, I don't work out, but I'm ready.
I can't, but I said I'll DJ. I just want to be there in the energy. I feel it already.
The energy is going to be hype. Yeah, the energy is going to be great. So I'm super excited about that.
I love to be there. Please do let us know when it happens. You said on the 15th?
On the 15th, yes. I'll post that up pretty soon, but on the 15th, yes, is going to be our pop-up. And then they launch officially in March.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to thank our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Darneesha. Thank you, Adasha. We will leave information about Black coffee, where to go, the website, address, everything. We'll leave it on our comments page and on the post. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks, Darneesha. Thanks,
Thank
Adasha.
you. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Salam.
Bye.
Walaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.